welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 155, and for this one we go back to kind of my original spot in Las Vegas. We go to Red Rock, we play some 5, 10, 20 there, and then we head to the Strip and play some 10, 20 at Aria. It's the same day, 2 separate sessions, and it's been a blast, like playing these higher stakes games and seeing these big pots happen right in front of me. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going back to Red Rock. It's located on the west side of Las Vegas. It's where I made my first ever poker vlog. I used to come here almost every day for years after I initially moved to the city in 2012 to play professionally. I met a lot of my core group of poker friends at Red Rock, including your boy, Andrew Nemi. I've spent by far more hours playing here than any other property. My friend Jeff told me a 2-5 game had been converted into a 5-10 game. I figured I'd come check it out. It's been a long time since I've made a video here. I buy in for $2,000. There's 6 other players, but a massive pot is underway as soon as I take my seat. I didn't see the beginning of the hand, but I see a bet of 400 on the turn and a raise to 1,600. Ultimately, the players get it in for around 3,500 effective, and a pot of over 7,000 happens right in front of me before I'm even dealt in. The winner has Jack 9 for the Jack high 6 card straight, and the loser has 9-8 for the 10 high straight. I don't think that I've ever walked into a bigger pot. All of a sudden, there are only 5 other players. This could be a wild night. One of the first hands I play is 9-8 suited in the small blind. I'm hoping that I don't get stacked with it. It's a straddle pot, so we're playing 5, 10, 20. I raise to 100. The big blind calls. He's the player that I know the least about. Everyone else I played with for years, including 2 of my buddies. We're heads up, out of position. The flop comes 9-6 deuce with 2 spades. We flop top pair and have a backdoor straight draw. I need to bet to deny equity from hands containing 2 overs. I toss out another black chip. Winning this without getting called would be a great outcome. The opponent isn't a fan of that idea. He calls to make us sweat a little. He could have a better 9, a 6, a smaller pocket pair, or a number of other holdings. It's tough to know if we're ahead or not. The turn is another 6. I like that it isn't an overcard. We could be up against trips though. I bet $250 to get value out of anything that we might be beating. If I get raised, I'll have to fold. The player calls again. I'm not loving the situation. It gets worse as the river is the ace of hearts. If we were up against an ace-high flush draw, or if we were perhaps getting called down light by a random ace-high, we no longer have the best hand. I check. Luckily, the opponent checks back and shows pocket 3s. Our hand is the winner. We get close to maximum value. A pot of over 900 is pushed our direction. I'm excited about the start. From this point on, it's 5-handed, and it ends up being 5, 10, 20 for every interesting hand that I play. In this one, we pick up pocket 7s in the big blind. The player on my left is straddling every opportunity he gets, whether it's from under the gun or from the button. The cutoff limps in for 20. My buddy Jeff calls in the small blind. I call for 10 more. The under the gun straddler checks. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It's king 5-4 with 2 hearts. We all check. The turn is the ace of spades. Checks to the cutoff. He bets 35 into 80. Small blind folds. I'm not sure the cutoff has much. He's been quenching his thirst with a variety of beverages that can be tougher to purchase on Sundays. He's a little splashy. Against anyone else, I'd fold. In this specific situation, I call. The under the gun player folds. It's heads up. The river is the jack of hearts. I check. The cutoff bet's even smaller this time. He makes it 30. It's really strange. I'm getting 6-1 on a call. I'm not sure what to make of this bet. I don't think the opponent has much. He probably has me beat though. It's unlikely he's strong and can call a raise. Rather than light $30 on fire, I raised to 200. If I'm being honest, my hand doesn't make a ton of sense. I suppose that I could play a flush this way. That's what I'd like my opponent to put me on at least. This is mostly me trying to exploit the cutoff who probably has 1 pair. He's tanking for quite a while. The Summer Olympics have come and gone by the time the cutoff eventually calls. I turn over this odd hand that I turn into a bluff. The opponent shows that he has Jack 5 suited. We were ahead on the flop and turn, but he drilled an unexpected 2 pair on the river, and that's how I lit $200 on fire instead of 30 at the most. Here I've got ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff. I open to 65. The button straddler calls. I've noticed that he's been bluffing a very high percentage of the time when it's checked to him. We're heads up. The flop comes ace-queen 5 with 2 clubs. We've got top pair and a solid kicker. I like the spot that we're in, especially considering the opponent that we're up against. I check to allow him the opportunity to fire. He doesn't disappoint. He bets 125. Okay, let's do this. I call. The turn is the 3 of clubs. The flush draw gets there. I still feel relatively good about the situation. I check. No hesitation from the button. He bets 225. This is still going in accordance to the plan. I call again. The river is the deuce of clubs. There are 4 to the flush and 4 to the straight on board. That's absolutely not the run out that I wanted to see. I check. No check back. the button bets 500. All I have is a complete bluff catcher. The thing is that this guy bluffs a ton. It's hard to imagine that he has it every time that he bets all 3 streets. Still, I don't see how I can call this light. I fold. We're now stuck a few hundred on the session as a lot of Bradley dollars are pushed towards the player on my left. We have an opportunity to get some back when we pick up king-queen offsuit in the big blind. My buddy Mike raises to 70 on the button. I call for 60 more. The under the gun straddler calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop, out of position. It comes ace, queen, queen with 2 diamonds. We flop trips. I check. Under the gun checks. Unfortunately, the button checks back. The turn is the jack of spades. We pick up a gutter. I check to allow the player on my left another opportunity to take a stab at it, since as I mentioned before, that's what he tends to do. He bets 75. This is when the situation gets sort of weird. The button calls. I've known him for a long time and I've seen him slow play a lot of strong hands. That might be what's going on right now. I call because I don't think that I can get called by many worse hands if I check raise. The river is the 9 of diamonds. The flush draw gets there. If the button had a flush draw on the flop, he probably would have bet it, so I'm not too concerned about him having me beaten that way. It may look to my opponents like I have a flush. Now I'm concerned that if I check, both players will check behind me. The under the gun player got called in 2 spots. I'm sure that sets off some alarm bells in his head. The button may have called the bet light from the under the gun player on the previous street, knowing that under the gun bluffs a lot, and I've checked twice, so I usually won't have much. It's unlikely a check will induce a bluff by either opponent. It's unlikely that any hand that I'm beating will bet at all. I make it 200 to get value out of someone who's holding an ace. If I get raised, I'll probably have to fold. Under the gun is thinking about it. He folds. It's on the button. This is a much better board for his range than it is for mine. He knows that I likely would have 3-bet pre-flop with queens, aces, ace, queen, and jacks. That means my range will have very few full house combos. The button puts me to the test and raises to 775. This is a nightmare. He can have almost all the full house combos in his range. Given the action, my trips has been turned into a bluff catcher since there aren't any hands that the opponent would raise for value with on the river that I'm beating. I have a very difficult decision, and it's quite the head game because I know that he knows that I know that he has the range advantage, and I've seen him slow play monsters in previous sessions. If I could have all the money back that I've called river raises with light, I'd have a few million more. People just tend to always have it. I reluctantly fold. I show him what I laid down. Whether or not it was correct, I don't know, but my buddy at least tells me that it was.
Good fold? Show it, Mike. You should show it for the vlog.
My friend normally isn't one to show cards almost ever. For you guys, he shows the 9 of clubs. Later he'd say that he had a full house and called light on the turn against that specific under the gun opponent with pocket 9s. He kind of always bends things, so he could have actually had queen 9 of clubs, especially since the queen of clubs is the only queen that isn't accounted for. He could have potentially turned jack 9 or ace 9 suited into a bluff because those have phenomenal card removal. I wouldn't really be surprised if he had any of those. Very interesting situation that left me scratching my head. I'm stuck several hundred. I attempt to add on for 1,000, but I got involved in a hand at the same time I was pulling out my money. Then I must have forgotten to count it properly once the hand finished because the chip runner comes back and notifies me that I gave him $1,220. That's an odd amount to add on for. While I'm writing this, I'm able to closely look back at the video of the amount I added for the first time, and it appears to be exactly 10 $100 bills. So I'm not totally sure what happened, or if there are 3 bills in there that I'm not seeing. I may have to return some money back to Red Rock. Okay, let's get to the game. I've got Jack 10 suited in the big blind. The cutoff opens to 65. He's the player who looked cold, and I tried to warm up by lighting $200 on fire with pocket 7s earlier. He hasn't raised much pre-flop, and he doesn't really have a large enough stack on his own for me to be calling here. I call for 55 more because it's likely that the under the gun straddler will join in who has a much larger stack. Surprisingly, under the gun folds, it's heads up. The flop comes Jack 10-6 with 2 hearts. We flop middle pair with a flush draw and a backdoor royal flush draw. What a time to be alive. I check. The opponent checks back. The turn is the 7 of hearts. We make the flush. I can't allow another free card to come off. I bet 100. Sleeping Beauty wakes up and raises to 300. He shouldn't have a better flush. He probably would have bet flop with the ace high or queen high draw. He already got half of his stack in. No need to Hollywood. I immediately jam for 600 effective. Right after, the opponent says just about the best thing that I could hear.
Is that in? Sir.
40 seconds go by, then the opponent has a little more to say.
I see that coming, bud.
I turn over the flush. We're now officially playing for the cutoff's entire stack. There's 1 card to come. The river is the ace of diamonds. No other hands improve to beat us. The Cutoff shows that he has pocket kings. I was caught off guard to see that he was that strong after it seemed like he was genuinely considering folding the turn. All the Bradley dollars I gave them earlier returned to the rightful owner, and they've made some friends. Cutoff and the player on my left both leave. This ends up breaking the game. I'm not done with poker for the day though. I played for an hour and 10 minutes, then the game broke. Somehow I was in for 32.20, not sure how the hell that happened, but cashed out for 34.60, so I won $240 altogether. And it's like 3:30 in the morning right now, so gonna, I guess, head back home. After getting rest, a buddy of mine tells me there's a great 10-20 game going on at Aria. I make my way over. I've never played 10-20 here before. I buy in for 4,000. I'm a lot less nervous playing these stakes after playing the session at 10-20 with the $20 big blind ante and frequent $40 straddles at Bellagio. It's still a little intimidating seeing 10K stacks all around. Unfortunately, by the time I take my seat, the game isn't quite as good as advertised. It looks like there are only 2 rec players and the rest are pros that are either as good or better than me. In this one, I've got ace-king offsuit under the gun. I open to 60. The cutoff calls, small blind calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It's king 10-7 with 2 clubs. I've got top pair, top kicker with some backdoor draws to the nuts. Small blind checks. I bet 110. No one has anything they want to continue with. The opponents fold. Not that large of a pot considering the game we're in. Still, I'll take it. Each hand we win, build some confidence in this big of a game. Next, we're dealt king queen suited in the cutoff. Under the gun limps in for 20. He's one of the recreational players. I raise to 80 to isolate him while we're in position with a fairly strong hand that has a lot of potential. Under the gun calls, we're heads up, becomes queen 6-6 with 2 spades, great flop for us. Under the gun checks, I want to keep this opponent in with a wide range. On paired boards, you don't have to bet very much. I actually down bet to 60. We accomplish our goal to entice our opponent. He calls rather quickly. The turn is the 3 of spades, the flush draw gets there. Under the gun takes it upon himself to bet 80. I'm not worried about it, it looks like a blocker bet. Part of me wants to raise and deny equity in case the opponent has a spade. Instead, I call so that I don't scare him off with a hand that might be drawing slim. The river is the deuce of hearts. It's about as blank as it gets. Under the gun checks. The way this has been played, I almost for sure have the best hand. I bet 200 for value. The player tanks. He doesn't believe that I have him beat. He calls. I show him the bad news. The player mucks without showing his hand. I might have gotten called light by pocket 4s or pocket 5s. I didn't get the sense that he had a queen. It's another pot that isn't that large for this game, but I feel good getting 3 streets of value. I'm up a few hundred, then the only 2 players that I have an edge on pick up. I'm familiar with almost all the remaining opponents, and I'm now the fish in the game. One of the most important qualities of a winning player is being honest with yourself about your skill set and leaving when you're no longer a favorite. It's time to head out. I played for about 40 minutes. I won $390. By the time I got in the game, it wasn't very good. That guy that I got with that king queen of diamonds hand picked up right after that, and then it was just all pros, and they were all guys who were better than me. So I was the spot. I picked up, and a couple other people did too. But fun playing 10-20. I'd like to keep playing it more and just get more and more comfortable and play some longer sessions in the future. I grab a jalapeno and pepperoni pizza with my buddy AJ at 550 Pizza Bar, located close to the poker room in Aria. I highly recommend checking it out. It might be my favorite pizza place in Las Vegas. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel quite a bit. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. If you're ever in Las Vegas and you're interested in playing somewhere other than the Strip, then check out Red Rock. It's one of my favorite places. I mentioned earlier in the video that I've spent more time there than any other place. The staff is amazing and the players are super friendly. And then if you're on the Strip, obviously Aria is one of the nicest poker rooms and they have tons of action. There's gonna be a few more sessions going forward that I play from Aria, so be on the lookout for those. I've actually been running really well lately. I'm always happy to share when I'm getting crushed. I think in 2019 I won on like a 19K downswing, and I had pretty much my worst year at poker ever. I won $1,000 on the year total. But now kind of the opposite is happening, where I've been running super good, and that's been great, and that's going to continue for the next couple videos, and playing in these bigger games is going to continue in the next couple videos as well, so be on the lookout for that. Also, my brother and I, we started a site called offthefelt.com. It's a poker forum site. We have a few thousand members on there, and I'd like to kind of get more involved in it and build that back up. I think one of the best ways to improve your game is to talk to other people and form groups and talk about poker hands together, and maybe they'll challenge you and get you thinking about different spots or situations that you wouldn't normally think about, or maybe taking alternative lines. So all that stuff is really good. We just put a new section in there for bad beats. If you want to get those off your chest, I actually just shared my worst bad beat story, so you can check that out. I have a link down below in the description box. All right, guys, I hope you're all doing well. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.